The lone observatory clung to the mountainside like a forgotten sentinel, a speck of warmth against the vast, cold indifference of the night sky. Inside, the only light came from the cold, digital glow of monitors, painting the faces of the weary few who kept watch. Dr. Eris Thorne rubbed his eyes, the caffeine no longer holding back the crushing weight of 1,000 sleepless hours staring into the void. It was then that a flicker of green, no more than a whisper on the data stream, caught his eye. It was anomalous, a ghost in the machine of the cosmos. A low murmur rippled through the control room as others noticed. Eris leaned closer, his reflection a pale mask of disbelief and a terrifying, dawning excitement. The signal was there, it was real. The whisper grew into a voice. Over the next 72 hours, the signal intensified, blooming on their screens in intricate, impossible patterns that pulsed with an intelligence far beyond their own. The world's best minds scrambled, a frantic orchestra of keystrokes and hushed, urgent consultations, trying to decipher the cosmic symphony. Tension in the control room became a physical presence, a tightness in the chest with every new data packet. In the simulations, a shadow began to resolve itself from the interstellar dark. It was a vessel, but not one of metal or light. It seemed to be carved from a patch of absolute blackness, a hole in the fabric of space itself, and it was getting closer. Then came the first image. A collective gasp, a step back from the main view screen. The being that stared back at them was a violation of natural law. It wasn't menacing in a way they could understand. It was simply wrong. Asymmetrical limbs twitched in non-Euclidean rhythms, and what might have been a face was a swirling vortex of colors that shouldn't exist. They transmitted a message of peace, the prime numbers, the hydrogen line, humanity's gentle knock on the universe's door. The reply was instantaneous, not a sound, but a feeling. A wave of psychic nausea washed over the room, accompanied by a visual feedback loop on screen that contorted into a silent, screaming rictus. One of the creature's appendages extended in a gesture that felt both like a greeting and a dire threat. The awkwardness curdled into a primal, gut-wrenching fear. What was a gesture of welcome to them? What was communication? A sudden power surge blew half the circuits in the observatory, plunging them into a terrifying semi-darkness. Outside, the clear night sky began to warp, the stars seeming to bend around an unseen point of gravity. This wasn't contact, this was an intrusion. Eris looked at the faces of his colleagues, their scientific curiosity now replaced with the stark terror of a prey animal that has just realized the predator is already in its den. They hadn't invited guests. They had opened the door to something that didn't understand what doors were for. The main screen, now flickering on backup power, suddenly cleared. The alien was no longer a distant image. It was as if it was looking through the screen, into the room. Its true form was not the biological anomaly they had seen, but the space it occupied, the wrongness it projected. The laws of physics were fraying at the edges. Alarms shrieked a panicked, useless chorus as shadows in the corners of the room began to writhe and stretch, detaching from the walls. Eris screamed into the comms, a single desperate command. "Cut the feed! Shut it all down!" But it was too late. The signal wasn't just a signal anymore, it was a presence. The link was finally severed, plunging the observatory into absolute silence and darkness. But the silence was worse than the screaming. On the one monitor that sputtered back to life, a single, perfect geometric shape now glowed, a shape that hurt the eyes to look at. Then it blinked out. The vessel was gone. The sky was normal. But the silence from deep space was no longer empty. It was watchful. They had rung the bell and something had answered, leaving humanity to wonder not if they were alone, but how long they had before it came back to collect.